The morning sky over Seoul turned crimson as massive alien vessels descended through the clouds. Their hulls gleamed with a strange metal that seemed to drink in the sunlight, casting dark shadows across the city below. The ships were enormous, each one larger than a city block, and they moved with impossible silence through the atmosphere. Commander Veltak stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Earth grow larger on his screens. His 4 eyes studied the planet with cold satisfaction. The blue and green world looked peaceful, almost defenseless. His sensors showed scattered human settlements across the continents, but no signs of advanced weapons or space technology. "Sir," his lieutenant reported, "we have completed the initial scan. The planet shows primitive civilization. No orbital defenses, no energy shields around their cities. This should be another easy conquest." Veltak nodded, his scaled skin rippling. "With pleasure. Excellent. The Hegemony Council will be pleased. How many worlds does this make now? 200? 300? He had stopped counting after his first 100 victories. Each world fell the same way, quickly, quietly, and completely. "We do detect some large biological signatures," the lieutenant continued, "but they appear to be simple animal life. Nothing that should concern our forces." "Animals," Veltak repeated with amusement. "The humans keep pets, I assume. Perhaps we can use them in our mining operations." He turned to his communications officer. "Signal the fleet. Begin Phase 1 of the invasion." Far below on Earth's surface, Dr. Kim Tae-ho was having a very different morning. The marine biologist had been working in his research station near the coast, studying samples from the deep ocean trenches. He was a quiet man in his 30s, with gentle eyes and patient hands, perfect for handling delicate sea creatures. Today was supposed to be like any other day of research, but the burning sky had changed everything. "Tae-ho, come look at this," called Dr. Park So-min from across the laboratory. She was his research partner, a brilliant woman who had spent years studying the mysteries of the deep ocean. Her voice carried a note of worry that made Tae-ho hurry to her side. The holographic display showed their underwater monitoring stations, which had been placed throughout the deep ocean trenches for research, but now the screens showed something troubling. Strange metal structures were rising from the ocean floor, growing like mechanical plants in places where humans had never built anything. "They're mining," So-min whispered, her face pale with fear. "The aliens are disturbing the deep trenches. They're building something down there." Tae-ho felt his stomach turn cold. He knew those trenches better than almost anyone on Earth. For years, he'd been studying the creatures that lived in the deepest parts of the ocean. In places where sunlight never reached and the pressure could crush a human instantly, the things that lived down there were ancient, older than human civilization, older perhaps than humans themselves. "We need to get to the bunker," he said quietly. "If they're disturbing the deep places, then we're all in danger." The research station had been built with a secure underground bunker designed to protect the scientists during storms or other emergencies. It had thick walls and its own power supply, enough food and water for weeks. As they gathered there, most important research data, the sound of explosions began echoing from the nearby city, through the small bunker windows. They could see the alien ships taking positions over major population centers. Beams of energy lanced down from the ships, striking military bases and government buildings. The human response was swift, but useless. Fighter jets screamed through the sky, but their missiles simply bounced off the alien ship's shields. "It's happening so fast," So-min said, watching the destruction with horror. "How can they be so powerful?" Tae-ho didn't answer. He was looking at his computer screens, watching the data from the deep ocean monitoring stations. The alien mining operations were getting bigger, digging deeper into the ocean floor. They were using some kind of sonic drilling, sending powerful sound waves through the water and rock, but there was something else. The deep-sea creatures that his sensors usually detected were moving. Things that normally stayed in the deepest trenches, things that never came close to the surface, were stirring. His equipment was picking up movement from creatures so large that the sensors could barely measure them. "So-min," he said softly, "I think the aliens have made a mistake." "What do you mean? They think this planet is defenseless?" They think humans are the only intelligent life here, but they're wrong. He pointed to the screen, showing massive shapes moving in the deep ocean. They're waking up things that have been sleeping for thousands of years, things that don't like visitors. Outside, the alien invasion continued. Cities fell one by one. As the Kethver forces established control, our commander was pleased with the progress, already planning the next phase of resource extraction. But deep beneath the ocean, in trenches that had never seen sunlight, ancient eyes were opening. The vibrations from the alien machines had disturbed a sleep that had lasted since. Before human civilization began, something vast and hungry was beginning to stir. And it was not pleased with the aliens' presence on its world. 3 weeks had passed since the alien ships first appeared in Earth's skies. Commander Velthok had been feeling confident about the invasion's progress. Human resistance was weak, their cities had fallen quickly, and mining operations were running smoothly. But that morning, something changed everything. "Sir, we have a problem," his communications officer reported, fear clear in his voice. "Patrol Group Delta has gone silent."
Ow!
"We found their ships, but..." Belthek looked at the images on his screen and felt his blood run cold. The 3 patrol ships were floating in space, but they looked like they had been attacked by some massive beast. Deep claw marks ran along the metal hulls, gouges so large that a human could walk through them. The bite marks were even worse. Something had taken chunks out of the ships, leaving jagged holes with teeth marks bigger than any creature the commander had ever seen. "What could do this?" he whispered. "Our ships are made of the strongest metal in the galaxy. Nothing should be able to damage them like this." His lieutenant's face was pale as he delivered more bad news. "Sir, Mining Station 7 is also gone. Silent. Their last transmission was ... strange. They reported movement beneath the ice shelf, something very large coming up from below." Before Velthok could respond, more reports started flooding in. Mining stations across the planet were reporting problems. Workers were disappearing, equipment was being destroyed, and strange sounds were coming from deep underground. The confident alien commander began to realize that something was very wrong with this invasion. Far away in the mountains of Korea, Lee Jinwoo was witnessing something that would change everything. Jinwoo had been a soldier before the invasion, trained to fight human enemies with human weapons. Now he was hiding in the mountains, living in caves and trying to survive. He was a tough man, used to hardship. But what he saw that day nearly broke his mind. The alien outpost below his hiding spot had been built 3 weeks ago. It was a large facility with energy shields and guard towers, designed to process the minerals being dug from the mountain. Jinwoo had been watching it for days, trying to figure out how to attack it. But he never got the chance. The ground began to shake, and at first, Jinwoo thought it was an earthquake. But then he saw something impossible emerging from an ancient cave system on the mountainside. It was a creature so large that it had to be seen to be believed. The thing was as tall as a building, covered in thick hide that looked like it had been scarred by thousands of years of battle. Its eyes glowed with an intelligence that was both alien and terrifying. Jinwoo watched in amazement as the creature moved down the mountain toward the alien outpost, moved with clear purpose like a predator that had found prey. The aliens. Energy barriers, which had stopped every human weapon, meant nothing to this ancient beast. It simply walked through them as if they were made of air. The creature's roar echoed across the mountains, a sound so deep and powerful that Jinwoo felt it in his bones. Then it began to tear apart the alien facility with its massive claws. The metal walls crumpled like paper. The alien weapons that had seemed so powerful were destroyed in seconds. Back at the Ocean Research Station, Dr. Park Soman was explaining what she had discovered to a group of human survivors who had gathered there. The bunker had become a safe meeting place for people trying to understand what was happening to their world. "These aren't just animals," she said, showing them data from her underwater sensors. "I've been studying these creatures for years, and I'm telling you, they're apex predators. They've survived every mass extinction event in Earth's history. The dinosaurs died. The ice ages came and went. But these things kept living and evolving." Dr. Kim Tae-ho nodded, adding his own observations. The aliens' mining operations are disturbing places that have been quiet for thousands of years. Using sonic drilling and heavy machinery in areas where these creatures live, it's like, imagine if someone started building a factory in your bedroom while you were sleeping. "So they're waking up?" asked one of the survivors. "More than that," Salman replied. "They're defending their territory. The aliens think they're conquering a planet full of primitive humans. They have no idea that Earth has guardians. Across the planet, the Kethver forces were learning this truth the hard way." Their confident advance had ground to a complete halt as reports came in from every continent. Massive shapes were moving through the ocean depths, heading toward alien underwater facilities. Ancient things were stirring in the polar ice caps, emerging from places where they had slept for millennia. Most disturbing of all, some creatures seemed to exist between dimensions, appearing and disappearing like shadows. The alien weapons that had easily defeated human armies were useless against these ancient predators. Energy beams that could destroy buildings barely scratched their hide. Sonic weapons that could level cities only seemed to make them angry. These creatures had evolved beyond anything the Kethver had ever encountered. Commander Velthak stared at the growing list of destroyed facilities and missing personnel. This was supposed to be an easy conquest, but instead it was becoming a nightmare. His forces, which had seemed invincible just weeks ago, were being hunted by creatures that should not exist. Earth's monsters were awake, and they were hungry. The Pacific Ocean had never seen anything like what was happening in its deepest waters. Captain Choi Min-ho pressed his face against the periscope of his submarine, watching something that made his hands shake. He was a brave man, a former naval officer who had been fighting the aliens for months, but what he saw now was beyond anything he had imagined. "Captain," whispered his navigator, Yoon-hae 1. "The sonar is picking up something massive rising from the Mariana Trench. It's bigger than anything we've ever recorded." Min-ho adjusted the submarine's position to get a better view. The ocean around them was lighting up with strange colors, blues and greens and purples, that danced through the water like living stars. At first he thought it was some kind of alien technology, but then he realized the truth. It was a creature. The lights were coming from its skin. The thing that rose from the deepest part of the ocean was so large that Min-ho's mind struggled to understand its size. It was longer than the biggest alien ships, wider than a city block, and covered in patterns of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Its skin seemed to be made of living light, creating constellations that moved and changed as it swam through the dark water. "My God," Hae-1 breathed. "It's beautiful and terrifying at the same time." But Min-ho was watching something else. The creature wasn't just swimming randomly, it was moving with purpose. Above them, the alien fleet was spread across the ocean surface, their ships floating like metal islands. The creature was positioning itself beneath them, circling slowly like a shark around prey. "It's hunting them," Min-ho whispered. At the sonar readings, it's hurting their fleet, pushing them into position. The alien ships seemed to sense something was wrong. Their engines started firing, trying to move away from the area. But every time they changed direction, a creature would move to block their path. It was like watching a giant underwater shepherd controlling a flock of metal sheep. Then the attack began. The creature's body pulsed with brilliant light, and suddenly the ocean itself seemed to come alive. Waves rose from nowhere, towering walls of water that reached toward the alien ships. But these weren't normal waves. They moved with intelligence, reaching out like giant hands to grab the floating vessels. "The ships are sinking," Hae-1 reported in amazement. "But not from damage. It's like something is pulling them down." Min-ho watched through his periscope as the alien floating cities, which had seemed so powerful and untouchable, began to disappear beneath the waves. Their energy shields, which had protected them from human weapons, flickered and died as something passed through them like they weren't even there. "Whatever that thing is," Min-ho said quietly, "it doesn't care about their technology." Hundreds of miles away, Dr. Kim Tae-ho was receiving similar reports from survivors all over the world. His small radio station in the research bunker had become a communication hub for human resistance groups, and the news coming in was both exciting and terrifying. "This is Tokyo Resistance," crackled a voice over the radio. "We're watching creatures that look like living shadows moving through the alien base. Their weapons can't hit them. The energy beams just pass right through." Another voice from Australia reported, "Something came out of the desert here. It's the size of a mountain, and it's walking toward the alien mining facility. The aliens are shooting at it, but their weapons aren't doing anything." Tejo compiled all the reports, trying to understand what was happening. The pattern was clear. All over Earth, ancient creatures were emerging from deep places and attacking the alien invaders. But there was something else, something that gave him hope. "Dr. Park," he called to his colleague, "I think I understand what's happening. The creatures aren't attacking humans. Every report says the same thing. They're only going after the aliens." Park Soman looked up from her research data. "You're right. It's like they can tell the difference between us and them. But how?" "Maybe they recognize us as belonging here," Tejo suggested. "We're native to this planet. The aliens are invaders, parasites. The creatures are protecting their territory." While General Ziekmer, the Kethver military commander, was having the worst day of his long career. His command ship was filled with panicked reports from officers who had never known defeat. His forces, which had conquered hundreds of worlds, were being destroyed by enemies that shouldn't exist. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're losing contact with bases on every continent. The creatures attacking us don't show up properly on our sensors. They register as cold as empty space, but when they attack, the heat signatures are off." The charts. Ziekmer studied the battle reports with growing horror. His weapons, designed to defeat advanced civilizations, were useless against these ancient predators. Energy beams that could destroy mountains barely scratched their hide. Sonic. Weapons that could level cities only seemed to make them angry. "How are they moving through our shields?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. It's like they exist in a different dimension. Our barriers can't stop them because they're not fully in our reality." The general watched his empire crumble as creatures that violated every law of physics hunted his forces across the planet. Earth's monsters had awakened. They were hungry for alien blood. The Kethver fleet had retreated to high orbit around Earth, hoping that the cold vacuum of space would protect them from the creatures that had destroyed their ground forces. Commander Velthak stood on his bridge, watching his remaining ships form a defensive circle around the planet. Surely, he thought, nothing could survive in the emptiness of space. He was wrong, Yang Sujin, the communications officer working with the human resistance, sat in her hidden bunker listening to the alien radio transmissions. She had learned their language weeks ago. Now she was hearing something that made her heart race with excitement and fear. "Emergency transmission to all hegemony worlds," crackled the alien voice through her speakers. "From Earth's system, we are under attack by unknown hostiles. Pete, request immediate evacuation." Sujin quickly called the other resistance leaders. "They're trying to escape," she reported. "But there's more. They're getting responses from other worlds in their empire. And those responses, they're not good." The alien communications were full of panic. Other hegemony worlds were reporting the same thing happening to them. Ancient creatures were waking up on planets that had been conquered years ago. Mining operations were being destroyed. Alien cities were falling, and no one understood how or why. "It's like Earth somehow sent a signal," Sujin explained to Dr. Kim Taeho over the radio. "Whatever happened here is spreading to other worlds. The aliens' entire empire is under attack." High above Earth, Commander Velthak was learning that space offered no safety. His sensors detected something approaching his flagship, but it was impossible to understand what he was seeing. The creature that emerged from the void between stars was like nothing in any alien database. It was huge. It's bigger than his largest battleship, and it seemed to be made of living darkness. Stars were visible through its body, as if it existed in several dimensions at once. Worst of all, it was moving through space without any protection, as if the vacuum that would kill any normal creature was just another environment for it to hunt in. "All weapons, fire at will," Belthic ordered desperately. The alien ship's most powerful weapons unleashed their fury on the creature. Energy beams that could destroy planets struck its shadowy form, but they passed right through it like it was made of smoke. The creature didn't even slow down. Then it reached the ship, the alien hull. Made of the strongest metals in the galaxy, tore like paper as the creature's claws found purchase. The ship's shields, which had protected it from human weapons and space debris, meant nothing to this ancient predator. It pulled the battleship apart piece by piece, hunting for the crew inside. Back on Earth, Li Jinwu was witnessing something that changed everything he thought he knew about the universe. The former soldier had been coordinating resistance cells in the Korean mountains. But now he was watching something impossible happen on the peak above his camp. One of the ancient creatures that had been hunting the aliens was standing perfectly. Still, its massive head tilted toward the sky. Lights were pulsing beneath its scarred hide, patterns that looked almost like stars. Jinwu realized with amazement that it was communicating with something far away. "It's talking to the creatures on other worlds," he whispered to his radio operator. "Somehow, it's sending signals across space, waking up guardians on planets the aliens conquered." The implications were staggering. Earth's monsters weren't just protecting their own world. They were part of a network that spanned the galaxy. Every world the aliens had conquered might have its own sleeping guardians, waiting for the signal to wake up and reclaim their territory, as if to confirm his theory. Jinwu's radio crackled with intercepted alien transmissions. The hegemony empire, which had seemed so powerful and unstoppable, was crumbling as ancient creatures reclaimed world after world. Commander Velthek, floating in the wreckage of his command ship, managed to send one final transmission to the Hegemony Council before his life support failed. His voice was filled with the terror of a being who had seen the impossible. "Council members," he gasped, "we have made a terrible mistake. These creatures ... they don't just live on planets. They exist between dimensions in the spaces between stars. Some of them feed on entire solar systems. We thought we were conquering primitive worlds, but we were actually disturbing ancient intelligences that treat the universe itself as their hunting ground." He paused, struggling for breath in the damaged ship. The humans. They were never the dominant species on Earth. They were the children, protected by guardians whose hunger runs deeper than the void between stars. We awakened something that sees our entire civilization as nothing more than a disease to be eliminated. The transmission ended as Velthok's ship was consumed by a creature that existed partly in normal space and partly in dimensions that had no names. Around Earth, the remaining alien ships were being hunted by predators that treated the vacuum of space like an ocean. The HFY hegemony, which had conquered hundreds of worlds, was learning that the universe had guardians. And those guardians had been sleeping for a very long time, waiting for someone foolish enough to wake them up. The aliens had found them. Now they were paying the price. The last HFY ship floated alone in Earth's orbit like a dying star. Inside, the remaining crew huddled together in terror, knowing that death was coming for them. They had watched their entire fleet destroyed by creatures that shouldn't exist. And now they were the only ones left. Dr. Park Soman stood in her rebuilt research station, watching the alien ship through her telescope. After months of hiding in bunkers, the human survivors had finally been able to return to the surface. The creatures had retreated to their deep places, but they had left the world changed forever. "Something's happening," she called to Dr. Kim Taeho, who was monitoring the alien communications. "Look at the space around their ship." Taeho looked up from his equipment and felt his breath catch in his throat. The space around the alien vessel was ... wrong. It seemed to be bending, twisting in ways that hurt to look at. Reality itself was being warped by something approaching from dimensions that human science couldn't measure. A creature was materializing around the ship. It wasn't like anything they had seen before. It existed in multiple dimensions at once, its form shifting between solid matter and pure energy. Sometimes it looked like a massive tentacled beast, other times like a living shadow that consumed light itself. It was beautiful and terrifying, ancient and alien in ways that made the HFY seem primitive by comparison. "The aliens are trying to communicate," Taeho reported, listening to their desperate transmissions, or begging for mercy, trying to negotiate. But the creature didn't seem interested in diplomacy. It moved around the ship like a predator, playing with its prey, testing the hull with appendages that existed in several dimensions simultaneously. The alien shields, which had protected them from human weapons, meant nothing to this guardian of reality itself. "Listen to this," Tejo said, translating the alien broadcast. "They're saying they'll leave, they'll never come back, they'll give Earth anything it wants. But the creature isn't responding. It doesn't care about their offers." Park Soman watched. In fascination, as the creature began to consume the ship, it wasn't destroying it with violence. It was simply absorbing it, breaking it down into its component atoms and adding them to its own mass. The process was slow and deliberate, almost gentle, like a parent feeding a child. They don't understand. Diplomacy, she realized. These guardians don't think the way we do. They only know one thing: protect their territory from invaders. The alien ship's final transmission was broadcast across the galaxy, a warning that would spread to every corner of the Kethfer Empire and beyond. Tejo recorded every word, knowing that this message would change how the universe viewed Earth forever. To all hegemony worlds, the alien commander's voice crackled through space. "Earth is not what we thought. The creatures here. They move between stars like fish through water. They exist in dimensions we cannot measure. Some of them consume entire civilizations as fuel for their existence. The universe itself is their hunting ground." The transmission grew weaker as the creature continued its slow consumption of the ship. "We thought we were conquering a primitive world. Instead, we have awakened ancient predators that see our entire civilization as nothing more than food. The humans were never the dominant species on this planet. They were the children, protected by guardians whose hunger burns hotter than stars and runs deeper than the void between worlds." The message ended abruptly as the last of the alien ship was absorbed into the creature. For a moment, the guardian hung in space like a living constellation, its form shifting between dimensions. Then it simply faded away, returning to whatever realm it had come from, as the debris of the final alien vessel burned up in Earth's atmosphere. The surviving humans began to understand the truth about their world. They had never been Earth's conquerors or masters. They had been its children raised under the protection of beings so ancient and powerful that they existed beyond normal reality. Li Jinwu, watching from his mountain hideout, saw the last pieces of alien metal streak across the sky like falling stars. "It's over," he whispered into his radio. "They're all gone. Round the world, the creatures that had defended Earth were returning to their deep places. The massive sea beasts sank back into the ocean trenches. The mountain guardians retreated to their ancient caves, and the shadow beings faded back into the spaces between dimensions. They had done what they needed to do. The threat was ended, but the galaxy would never be the same." Word of Earth's guardians spread to every corner of space, carried by the few alien survivors who had witnessed the destruction of the Kethfer fleet, other empires, other conquest-minded races. Heard the stories and decided that the blue-green world was not worth the risk. Earth had been marked as forbidden territory, protected by creatures that could turn the universe itself into their hunting ground. The planet that had once seemed like easy prey was now feared across the galaxy as the home of ancient guardians, whose appetite for alien blood was matched only by their eternal patience. The monsters had returned to their slumber, but they would wake again if needed. And every alien empire in the galaxy knew it.